Abuse video number 3. So now we're talking about like, why do people stay in abusive situations? And I know I've heard it from many people, and she's going to talk about this herself, but it's one of those, a lot of times is because they don't feel like they have any place else to go. And a lot of times, especially when the abusive person is narcissistic, it doesn't mean that they're always narcissistic. It means if they are, they've usually kind of run off the rest of your family, your friends, your people that your coworkers, your friends, they run them off. So now you're by yourself. So it's because it's easier to war over one person than it is a whole bunch of them. But they will run off your friends. I don't like them. They're tacky. They're this, they're whatever. And they start making all your friends and relatives go. And whenever those friends and relatives still come back, it's one of those, they get anxious, upset, pissed off, angry, whatever it is. And then it's like, here the abuse goes again. So a lot of times you learn like, well, if that's going to make them mad, I'm going to walk out of the situation or whatever else. But you feel like you have no one.
Yes.
And it's one of those, and like you were saying, like someday your kids are going to come up to you and be like, why'd you stay?
Yeah, why'd you take it?
Why'd you take it? And a lot of times, those are some of the hardest ones. It has to be a very truthful one, because I'll tell you, your kids will know that you're lying. Your kids will know you were lying about something. But it's important that you explain how you felt about things, what you went through as a child. It doesn't mean that you're like, I'm passing this off and I'm not going to do it this way or whatever else. It's just important for them to understand why you stayed. Because it's one of those, in your right mind, when you're in a safe place, in a great place right now, think about it. Why would you go into a relationship with someone who yells at you, screams at you, tells you that you're the reason they hate the world, they're the reason why they didn't get the job, you're the reason why this, you waste too much money? I mean, it's one of those, like, all of that crazy stuff comes out. That's the abuse part. That's the abuse.
Yes.
And it's like, why'd you put up with it?
They'll do anything to knock you all the way down so they have full control over you.
Because then that 3 to 6 year old little child is like, yay, I won. Because that 3 to 6 year old child is now like triumphant or victorious over a grown adult.
Yes.
But it's one of those, but if you grew up in abuse, it's one of those, you're just as bad in some areas because you didn't learn how to cope with this. You didn't learn how to set healthy boundaries. And if you did, usually the person who was abusing you when you were a child ran all over those boundaries. So then you're like, what the heck? So why even set boundaries if it's not going to work? And so you grew up in this crazy, chaotic situation.
Yes.
And then it's kind of like, how do you deal with this?
And there is help out there to help you learn.
There is.
To get those boundaries up.
And it takes a while, because it's one of those, especially if you grew up in an abusive situation and you're still in an abusive situation or even out of it, it's one of those, it takes a lot for you to put those boundaries back up, to learn how to do it. I need to set some healthy boundaries.
Yes.
I need to help, set some healthy boundaries with other people. And it's not something that you're going to fix overnight. I guarantee you it is not. But it's important that you start learning.
Yes, and I know you may think you're not able to do it because your finances. You're probably not working right now because they don't want you to work, because they don't trust you. They don't trust people around you. They don't want you around employees, employers, your clients, customers. They don't want you around anybody. They want you home on the camera where they can see you and they know what you're doing the whole entire time. So I get that if you don't have the money to get the help, YouTube is right there at your fingers. There is so many videos on YouTube that are absolutely free that you could just research it and just listen, put your headphone on, listen to it so he doesn't hear what you're listening to.
Well, and also say too is like, there's a lot of places that you can go and get help. There's women's shelters and stuff like that. And a lot of people go, oh, they're really bad. Yes, there are some really bad ones, but there are some really freaking amazing ones out there that people will step up and help. And I guarantee you there's more help out there than you think. And a lot of times they'll tell you, like, no one wants you. You're a horrible person. No one's going to want to help you or whatever else. They're saying that because that's going to keep you alone. So when you start thinking about what they're telling you, literally think about it almost like pulling yourself out of that situation. Like, they're telling me no one's here to help, but Ruth is telling me different. Someone else is telling me different.
The support groups. Yes.
There are support groups. There are ways to get out. And the more you work on you, the better it's going to be. And I often tell people that's part of your exit plan. Even if it's literally just taking a few extra dollars every week out of the grocery money or whatever else and putting that aside so you feel like I've got a little nest egg, even if it's not that much, even if it's only $100 or $2, like that's going to make you feel like you've got someplace to go or something that you can do. You have choices. Having friends and family, I have told this to many, many people. If someone gives you cash for your birthday or whatever else, like stick it in an envelope, give it to someone that you trust, even if it's an older neighbor or whatever else to hold on to, like to put the money aside. So if you need it, you've got it. And so then you've got this. I literally had a client who buried it in her garden. She buried a box in her garden that had cash in it. And so when her husband would be really abusive, she could literally go and pick up the bag and literally take off with it. And she had money in there. I mean, sometimes more, sometimes less. It just depended on how much she had been able to set aside at times. But she eventually was able to leave her husband and get into in a much better situation. But it took a lot of time. And the funny one is you were saying, like, a lot of times they don't want you to work. She was a physician. She was a doctor. And her husband took all of her money.
Oh, yes.
They want
those are nurses' controls.
They want all of those controls over every bit of your money all the time. And literally, I was talking to her about something, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's something you could get for the holidays or whatever else." And she goes, "My husband does not allow me to buy gifts for the kids because that would mean she would have money." She made so much money in her business, but her husband took all of it.
Oh, yes. And that's the controls.
And it was one of those, and she was only allowed to work with other females, nurses and all that kind of stuff, no staff that were males because he did not want a male around her at all. So it was like, so you think, I mean, you're talking to someone who's super educated, but at the same time,
still going through the situation.
Still going through the situation. It's like, what? So money can make a difference, but it's one of those, it's all about the control. And that that's usually when you're dealing with that 3 to 6 year old child. If I control the money, I control everything else in their world. If I control the money and who they're talking to and who they're dealing with, that means everything. So you have to be very careful about what you say, how you say things, and know that someday you're going to have to be accountable, not only to your kids, more importantly to yourself. Why did you allow this to stay? Why did you stay in this situation for this long? You have to be accountable to you, because it's one of those, I often say, it's one thing if someone did something to you bad. If someone did something bad to you one time, it's easier to go, yeah, it's not a big deal. But a lot of times we stay in that situation and we stay and we stay. And when we allow this abuse to keep going, and it's like, they abused you this so many times, but you kept dealing with it. You kept going through it. And it's one of those, make your exit plan now. And one of the things that's kind of really cool about this is 2025 is a 9-year. And 9 years are all about releasing and letting go of anything and everything in your world that no longer works. To me, an abusive situation, that'd be something I'd be letting go of pretty dang quick.
It does not serve you.
It does not serve you at all. So start making your plans, start making your arrangements, start making your ideas, finding a support group. Even if you think it's like I won't find people, there will be people that will show up in your world that will help you. There will be people that will show up and be like, I went through this and I'm willing to help.
Yes, I'm pretty sure we could find some websites for you where you get free help as well for support groups that we could probably add on.
Yeah, we can add. I'll add them on as I find them. Yes. But make sure that you are finding those support groups. And to me, I know a lot of people are like, I'd rather be living in a home than a shelter. Really? With all the abuse that you deal with when it's at its worst, just know that worst time is going to come again. It's never going to be perfect all the time. So when it's in a good situation or everything is kind of going along and it's not so bad, that's when you need to be making arrangements for those worst times to come in, because they will come. They always do. And it's time to find a place for you to find your loving, supportive energy to move out of this situation and let this go.